Thanks, Katie. Hello, everyone. Okay, so my name is Mike Viteri, and this is Application Server Redundancy. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at about 6 PowerPoint slides just to get a little bit of information, and then we're just going to go dig into the software. So Application Server Redundancy. In a non-redundant system where we just have one runtime server, it handles all the data for which we call the galaxy. If the server is lost, the clients lose connection to all the data, including InTouch, Historian, and any other application object servers. In a redundant system where we have 2 servers, the data is maintained through a synchronized network. If the primary server is lost, the backup server will take over, and the switch between the servers is transparent to the clients. They have no clue that that even really happened. Let's see, the characteristics of application server redundancy. It's currently only supported in pairs, so you pretty much need what we call a primary and then the backup server. It's required what we call an RMC, a remote message channel. And basically this is just a secondary network card in both the servers, the one that you want to be the primary and the one that you want to be redundant. And that remote message channel is essentially just a crossover cable between the 2 machines. So we have what's called a primary app engine, and we have what's also called, once we make it redundant, which will be a backup app engine. At runtime, we call it an active app engine and a standby app engine. And the active app engine refers to the standby app engine as the partner. The redundant message channel. We have automatic synchronization of the checkpoint data, of alarms, dates and times, of any history data, deployed objects and configuration, and app engine status. So basically everything gets synced over to that backup server to keep it in real time in case there is a failover. Everything knows exactly where to pick up. Supported configuration is peer-to-peer architecture. Each Win platform hosts a different app engine and application objects. There's no need for a dedicated backup node, meaning you can run some primary app engines on the first primary server and some on the secondary backup server, and they can be a failover of each. So you don't have to have one box just sitting there doing nothing, wasting resources. And Win platforms can host more than one app engine. The redundancy configuration. You always need a second network card in each server. We have to configure the orchestra network first before the RMC network, which basically means in the network connections there's some advanced settings where orchestra's first and the crossover cable second, and I'll show you that. And also the remote message channel needs a fixed IP address on a different subnet, so maybe just 10.10.10 or something like that, something completely different of what your real network subnet is. And on the application server side, we just configure the Win platforms with their local RMC addresses, so the RMC address of the network card where it's going to be deployed to. Just configure the app engines to be redundant and assign the app engines the primary and backup to the Win platforms. So what we'll do is take a look, and everybody should be able to see this. So basically, I have 3 images here. This is my GR and my first application object server, which right now is the primary. This is my secondary object server, which is the backup, and this will just be my InTouch view node. If we take a look inside the IDE, here's my deployment view. So on my GR, we look at the platform configuration here. I have the network address of the local machine, and then here's where you put the redundancy IP address, the RMC address. So I made it 192.168.1.100. And this is the IP address of where it's going to be deployed to. And since it's deployed to this machine, that's the address you put. So if I look at my IP config, you can just see there's the IP address here, and then here is the RMC address. And I've done the same thing on the second object server. Here's the IP, and then here's the RMC address. So you see they're it's a completely different subnet. And then this is the local network card here of AOS 2 where it's deployed to. And then on the engine, once you have that configured on the engine, all you have to do is click on the redundancy and click this checkbox and hit save. And once you hit save, your backup engine shows up under the unassigned host, and you just drag it to the server that you want to be your backup server, and then just deploy it out like normal. These default settings here, you should never have to change unless you have a really big system or something like that. But these are usually fine by default. And so I just have one object here that's just recording that's displaying a tank level, and I also have a DDE Sweetlink client. And what I've done on here is I set everything up on my topic, but I made this local host. So what will happen is this is running on the primary app engine, and there's actually a DA server running on here. So it knows to look at that one to get the data. Now if we lose this AOS 1, it'll fail over. It'll still be looking for the local host, but I also have a DA server running on AOS 2, so it'll pick that right up. So let's just go look at the InTouch application now. Okay, and on the InTouch application, I've just took one of the orchestra graphics, embedded it into my engine, and it actually displays my redundancy here. It's saying the primary server's active, the backup standby ready. Here's my tank level counting here also. And I also just made a small orchestra graphic counting the tank level. And so what we can actually do at this point is I can actually just fail over the engine here right from this graphic. And then you should see there should be a small blip in the tank level, but it's hardly recognizable unless you're paying attention. So let's just try to fail this over by using the graphic. So I'm just forcing it on my own. And you might do this if you're doing maintenance maybe on the primary server and you need to move everything over to the backup because you have to take the primary down. So it says it failed over, everything's still good, and my tank level is still counting and it hasn't missed a beat. So now it says it's on the backup. What I can also do is I also have this in the object viewer here for the IDE, and you can actually see for that app engine that says the identity is on the backup, and here's the level. One other thing I can do to simulate a failure is, it says it's running on the backup. I can actually come into here on my my virtual image, and actually, well, let me do it this way actually. I'll come into the network connections and I'll disable each network connection to look like there was a failure on the box. And that graphic below should automatically kick it over. It should know there's a problem on the active, and it should kick it over to the primary here. And now it knows there's an unknown problem. And okay, so it's saying active. My tank level's still counting, so I haven't missed a beat, but it can't contact, the RMC cannot contact this secondary box here, the backup, and it just says, standby engine has become unavailable. It doesn't know what the problem is, it just knows that it's not able to ping that machine anymore. So you don't have a backup at the moment, and that's also what my object viewer is saying here, is it's on the primary but active, standby not available, it knows it's gone. So now if I re-enable these network cards, now it says standby, syncing, determining failover status. And now it's just getting its data, trying to get up to speed, and now it knows it's back up and it's working. The one thing about failover too is once it fails over from the primary to the backup, it'll stay on there until someone actually forces it back to the primary, or there's a failure on the backup and it fails to the primary on its own. It doesn't automatically fail back to the primary once it realizes it's come back up. And the one other way too we can just do it is I can do it in the object viewer. Just force the failover. Goes true, this should go to backup. And then it still counts my data. And everything's working. So that sums up just the application server failover. If you have any questions, just let us know. And Katie, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Mike. If you do have any questions at this time, please feel free to utilize the Q&A and chat boxes. We will address all questions offline. I will remain on the line for 5 minutes to allow for time for questions. Thank you for joining us today.